Hey everyone, this is Louis7 and I have some news for the Lord of the Rings Online, mainly covering update 29.5, the patch for that, and I will also be doing some stuff. There was the Q&A from Severlin on actually yesterday, April 16th, so I will also be spreading in some information from that and covering that mainly at the end after the patch review. But first of all, this patch is surprisingly big for not being a major update. It's 29.5 rather than like update 30, yet there is a lot of exciting stuff coming in. The update will release on Monday. Usually the maintenance is 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, which is a couple days actually from this video. Anyway, the first big thing we're getting is the Further Adventure system. Now this basically follows the mission system as far as the mechanic it uses within the game, the technology it uses, but it is going to be a 10-chapter story-based content with Bilbo Baggins. And it sounds like you can start that in Rivendell from Celebrier, and then you can start the Further Adventures of Bilbo Baggins. It is level 20 to 130 like regular missions, and it sounds like there will be some interesting rewards. But before I get to that, I should point out that the Further Adventures, the content with that does come with VIP, but if you are not VIP, you will have to buy it in the LOTRO store. There currently doesn't seem to be a price. They might have more information on that later, it sounds like. But moving on, with the rewards, if you complete all 10 missions, which is the 10 chapters of Bilbo Baggins stories, you will get a title, Virtue XP, and tokens of Further Adventure. Now these tokens of Further Adventure, it sounds like it's going to be a new thing for whatever Further Adventures they have after Bilbo Baggins as well, where you will get level appropriate rings, cosmetic items, and housing decorations, it looks like from that. And I do want to point out, even in the notes, it actually says these tokens are account bound rather than character bound, so that is very exciting compared to a lot of the mission rewards. They're very much so character bound for what we have right now, and I think that is a system that really should take advantage of the barter currency being account bound. So I really do like to see that, and I will be excited to play through that hopefully on Monday. I should be able to. But moving on, the next big thing we have is the legendary servers. They're going up to level 105, which includes content up to the waist, so everything right before Mordor. Again, the level cap's going to 105. We'll have update 18 for Anori and that content, then update 19 with, I think that was called March of the King, but it goes to North Ithilien. And then there's update 20, the waist. That will also include new instances, the Pelennor instance cluster, as well as the Throne of the Dreadtear raid, which as far as the legendary servers go, that's the first multi-boss raid since, I believe, the Rise of Isengard one, Tower of Orthanc. So for me personally, just because I've been spending so much time on the legendary servers lately and playing with my kin there, I am very excited for that and going through that content. But setting that aside and going off that tangent, we can actually get back into the news, which the next big thing, the third big thing, is the anniversary. That won't start on Monday, but it will start on April 21st, which I believe is Wednesday. And yes, I just confirmed April 21st is Wednesday, and that will last through May 11th. I believe it will end on 3 a.m. on May 12th, just so y'all know. And that is going to be the 14th anniversary for LOTRO, and there are a lot of new rewards actually. First, there will be the annual reward. We don't know what that is, and you will get the new year gift boxes forever, however long you've been playing LOTRO and all that sort of usual stuff. But there are some new cosmetic interesting rewards. I think there are cats that are going to be added, cosmetic cats, like cosmetic pets, that type of stuff, which I would be excited to check those out, see if they could perhaps replace my Ill-Omened Hound, which would be very tough to do on my Warden. But anyway, there will also be cosmetic torches. That is one of the big things that they have been highlighting for the anniversary. I believe it will be an item or a cosmetic pet type item. I don't think it will function exactly like the pet or take up the slot of your pet, but it sounds like they can't actually have the torches like equip as a cosmetic weapon. You just have to toggle it, is really what I mean with that, from what I remember one of the developers commenting on the forums how it would have to work and be implemented. So I don't think you could use the torches in combat is the big point that I'm getting on here. But moving on from the anniversary, we have some actual regular patch stuff and a lot of fixes. Mainly there's been an issue with the per pixel lighting, especially in housing areas and with floors, and that looks like it has been fixed. There are a lot of item changes, so they have the simple carrying torches. That's what they're actually called. Forgot that, so even in the patch notes. But it's a consumable item that can be bartered for steel tokens at any Keeper of Gifts vendor. And I think you get it as like a permanent toggle skill type thing if you use it enough, if I remember correctly, if it actually works as the developer, what I remember the developer commenting on the LOTRO forums with that. And it sounds like there are mainly just a few fixes after that. I will also point out for anybody that does Hobnanigans in the Buried Treasure event, there is the face paint stencil, which I have no idea what that is. It's a consumable item, but that now triggers a consumable, consume consumables deed rather, and that has a 20-second cooldown for anybody that does participate that and is interested in that. I have no idea what's going on there personally, so not too much to comment on. And also with the Host of the West Quartermasters, they have music boxes for the Waste theme and the Waste Epic theme for you to put in your houses and that type of stuff. And there are also some naming inconsistencies with item skills and cosmetic pets that have been fixed, it sounds like. And there is actually one more bit of big news, kind of the fourth big thing actually, is the Curator is returned. Now the Curator is a Figments of Splendor NPC that is kind of inconsistently added to the game, it seems like, and taken out of rotation in favor of these rotating NPCs for Figments of Splendor. But anyway, the Curator has returned and will be available through May 2nd, at least has returned once the patch comes out, of course, on Monday. Now, the next big section is on quest and adventure areas, and this is mainly bug fix type things, but there is one thing I do want to point out, which is with Woe of the Willow for people interested. Gulmok Dampmold, the first boss in that instance, will have his cooldowns increased, and this is actually something even trying to just solo the 3-man version of that for fun. It's something I noticed. He used his inductions a lot, his skills a lot, so that should be nice, and I think a lot of people, from what I have heard with the higher tiers especially, will be happy with that. Alright, there are just a couple more things to cover, and the first is the Legacy Game Client will run on Windows XP. If any of my viewers do go on Windows XP for LOTRO, it sounds like the Legacy Client may have not been working, and it should be working now. But the last section that I actually do want to point out in this video is the known issues. So it sounds like for a door in the Further Adventures of Bilbo Baggins, specifically Chapter 9, that will remain unusable and there is a fix. So if that does happen to you, if you get stuck on Chapter 9 in the Further Adventures of Bilbo Baggins, all you need to do is run back to the start of whatever tunnel it is, and then you can run back to the stuck door, and that should make it actually interactable, the door. And we will see how that actually plays out and if I run into that issue, but in case anybody does, that is a known issue that I guess will be going into the patch. And then finally, there is one more issue ongoing with the Wildwood, I believe, Retribution of the Trees. I did not run into this issue. I was fortunate, and I know a lot of people have been running into issues with Wildwood, but I've been fortunate to never run into those on my hunter. But Retribution of the Trees, there was something that was preventing the quest from being completed, and the issue has been resolved, but it sounds like for anybody who has already started on that quest or whatever, they will still need to contact customer support in game. And on the note of customer support, this was actually a topic brought up in the Chat with Seb stream, where they mentioned they have been having a lot of support issues from behind the scenes, like from their end, mainly from the tech around support. So support has been slow lately, but it sounds like they are hoping to get that better and working on some things to maybe even have it better than before, get to customers and supporting them quicker. So hopefully that does go through for anybody that has had to contact customer support and has had issues or just slowness with that. Heard a lot of people having issues with customer support lately, which is not that great. But that is all for the patch note portion of this review. I do want to cover just some random things from the Chat with Severlin stream. It's a lot of stuff we already covered in my previous videos. I don't want to go complete repeat on everything, but there were some interesting tidbits. First of all, some of the main things is Brawler still planning on doing that as like a pre-release for Gundabad. The LIs, they didn't have any specifics, but they still want to make the new system and work to convert the old system into the new system so we can keep our progress. That was a big point made throughout the stream, that they don't want to just like totally scrap it and start from the beginning, or at least they want to do that. It will be a new system, but where everybody who has invested their time and effort into their current LIs and imbued LIs, that will be able to carry over into the new system, which is probably a good thing, even though completely scrapping, starting everybody fresh, I don't think would necessarily be a bad thing. It probably overall is a good thing for those people who have invested, especially for people who may have spent real money expecting the imbued LI system to stay the same and their progress to keep forever. So I did just want to point that out. Now, there was also this big point about their new difficulty tech. There has been some information found on like an NPC that can scale the difficulty, and Severlin actually went into a little bit of detail on this, which was pretty nice. So we don't have a timetable. I should say that we don't have a timetable on when they would actually have this difficulty scaling stuff in place. Unfortunately, we don't know if it could be 2022 or if it even could be this year. I would guess it's quite a bit off, but maybe not. Maybe it could be a little bit sooner. But anyway, with that, this is going to be like an NPC you can talk to and change the difficulty of the landscape. And it will be available after the intro area. I don't know if it should be available throughout the entirety of Middle Earth or if it's just for certain regions. And they just want to add more difficult things to the landscape, and importantly, they want the creatures to be dangerous. But one concern a lot of players have with this is that fights would just take forever. You would turn what is maybe a 10-second fight into a 10-minute fight would be an exaggeration, but maybe a 10-second fight actually turns into a 1-minute fight, which would be very long for a regular landscape fight. They do not want this to happen, it sounds like, or at least not much longer to kill. Maybe it would go from like 10 seconds to 15 seconds or something, but that is not the point of what I am talking about, getting way sidetracked with that. They just want the difficulty to spike, and in particular, it sounds like they want to have this feature where when Sauron's eyes comes down, the difficulty will really spike. You might have like fire raining down on you. It sounds like creatures could enrage. You could have the corruption mechanic. Creatures would get corruptions and you'd have to remove them, that type of stuff. And it sounds like overall the highest difficulties they want from that is actually for it to be like a group will be needed on the landscape, or at least heavily desired. Of course, some people, like even myself, would probably just try to solo whatever the highest difficulty of that is, but yeah, it really does sound like they want this to be difficult. Now, one big concern I have with this that wasn't really covered all that well in the Q&A is it has to be, for me at least, to do more difficult landscape content, it has to be rewarding. Whether that's something like just virtue XP you get for doing things, or your character even gets extra XP, which sometimes I wouldn't even always want that, or whatever it is, maybe better gear, things like that to help you do more difficult content. All that type of stuff would be nice, but was not covered, and right now that is my biggest concern, because to me there's almost no point in turning up the difficulty if you don't actually get anything out of it. I think the one thing that was mentioned was like titles, and that is it. So the titles would have to be very appealing and very exciting titles right now from what I know to motivate me, and I talk about this so long just because it is my biggest concern actually about this whole difficulty sliding mechanic that they have. But anyway, on to the next topic. With missions, it sounds like they want the rewards to be consolidated. So right now you can do any mission, Wildwood mission or War of Three Peaks missions, that will count towards your 15 and 45 weekly. So that is all good, but as far as like the barter currency you get from missions, it sounds like they want the rewards there to be consolidated, and you might see some of that starting in the Blood of Azog. But in Gundabad they will do a more like, I guess, mission-wide out of everywhere, some sort of like revamp type thing with that, it sounded like. So your mission rewards are more consolidated, and I only hope that the mission rewards are also account bound. That's like the biggest thing to me right now, is I really hope that there's more account-wide integration with them, because LOTRO unfortunately is not a very alt-friendly game, and the mission system is the perfect thing to help make LOTRO more alt-friendly. So we will see on that. That's another thing that I am hoping as far as this stuff goes. And I believe that is all the main stuff. Actually, there is one more topic, two more topics actually. There is the class revamps topic. That was something that kept coming up during the stream, and Severlin just basically kept saying he would be excited to talk about that, but didn't want to spend the whole stream talking about it, which is basically what we had the previous two Q&As. And it sounds like it will be just small incremental changes, which is basically, I think, what just about everybody knew. Going into Gundabad, they're working on the Brawler and spending basically all the class development time and effort, it sounds like, into the Brawler. But we might get some small incremental changes for some classes for the next few months, and then maybe after Gundabad, they can start to work on some bigger changes with the classes, which we can only hope for those classes that are kind of down in the dumps right now. We can only hope they get improved, and maybe even some of the better classes adjusted slightly down. It always feels bad to me to nerf something, but sometimes that could be necessary. And having the classes on a more level playing field, especially with like, there's a lot of issues going on with tanks and even a little bit of issues going on with healers that could really use some adjusting outside of just the, of course, DPS roles. But anyway, Moving on from that, the last thing I do have to cover is the Enad Global 7 acquisition. Severlin actually commented on that. They drew out that question and specifically talked about it. Now, they were not that forthcoming with details, unfortunately. They were being very vague. I think that was obviously purposefully they were being vague. They didn't want to say anything that they've shown it. That was actually something that kept coming up in the stream, them talking about them trying not to say something they shouldn't. But anyway, to go on with the deal with EG7 acquiring Daybreak Games, and with that acquiring Standing Stone Games, it sounds like the company that they're in as a whole is actually very excited about LOTRO and LOTRO in the future. But again, they couldn't really share any specific details. There's just a lot of different things going on with that, and I don't even know if they know more than we know about it with the shareholders presentation with the EG7, of course, talking about the graphics revamp planned and even bringing LOTROs to console. Well, I'm skeptical on both of those things. Yeah, they were not able to comment on specifics, but I really thought it was surprising that they even commented on it at all and did share that at least the company is excited about LOTRO and its future. So maybe if they get like huge investment as far as money goes, they could actually up the graphics or things like that. But again, I'm personally skeptical on all of that. So I did want to comment on that, especially because I do appreciate that they actually, Severlin especially, was actually able to make some comments on the EG7 acquisition. And those are all the topics of the video. Next week is going to be a surprisingly exciting week for LOTRO for being a DOT update. It's 29.5. But again, we're getting kind of three major things. We're getting the anniversary, we're getting 105 to legendary servers, which I know doesn't apply to everybody, but it's very exciting for me. And then whatever the third thing was, further adventures with Bilbo Baggins, that is right. And on Monday, just to announce, I do plan to stream the new content, mainly the further adventures with Bilbo Baggins, but we'll probably check out some of the 105 stuff on the legendary servers as well. And of course, Wednesday, I would hope to do the anniversary event and check out anything with that. And the final thing I do want to point out, I plan this video to be up on Saturday morning, and I do plan to stream later today if anybody is interested in checking that out. And that is all I have for this LOTRO news video on actually both the patch, doing the patch review, and I guess the Q&A with Severlin. I went into more details than I remembered with that. But anyway, if you did enjoy this video or learned something useful from it, please do consider liking and subscribing for more, or becoming a channel member to support the content. And thanks for watching, everyone.